What is up, guys? Thank you for joining me, and welcome to Ads Unscrewed. What's happening, guys? Welcome to another segment of Ads Unscrewed. Tonight we are welcoming back Herman H Le Roux, who's going to talk to us about defeating drugs. Unfortunately, he is having a couple of technical issues pertaining to his connectivity. So I'm hoping that he joins us on the stream soon. But for now, I'm going to talk about something else. I must say that I have been caught off guard here. So I'm going to have to do something I do very well, and that's find some other shit to talk about in the meantime. If you're out there, guys, engage with me. Let's chat about something. Sure. I got to. All right, let's do this. The first comment that comes up. Everybody out there, just comment something. Just give me a subject and let's go on about it. The first comment. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes. I can't be quiet for a couple of minutes. That'll just look odd, won't it? Okay, so conflict resolution. I'm not grown up enough for that. You know what? Until Herman gets here, guys, let's talk about conflict resolution. You know, everybody deals with conflicts in different ways. I guess you get different levels of conflict, don't you? Verbal, and then there's a good old boxing match. Geez, I honestly, I really feel like I'm lost in water without a pedal at the moment. But yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how people deal with conflict. I guess that's the only one that's come through for now. But all right, so look, I mean, I can only really reference myself. I can only talk about my experiences with conflict resolution, so to speak. I wasn't necessarily the most humble of young men when I started out in the working world. I think I kind of thought like every other sort of not teenager, but young professional, if you want to call us that. My general impression was that I knew everything. Obviously that sort of attitude doesn't go down well in the workplace. Yeah, check the questions are already rolling in here. How do you deal with conflict? It would come from you, my love. But yeah, I think let me talk about the conflicts in the work world first of all. I was a hot-headed youngster when I entered the working world. I kind of thought that I knew everything, and that didn't really go down too well with my bosses at that stage. I grew a bit of a big head, and I guess I pissed a lot of people off and burnt a lot of bridges. I've never really had a problem in dealing with conflict. I'm certainly not a fan of conflict. I don't like having to throw down and argue and fight and all of that. But push come to shove, I do it, and I do it quite easily. I guess it's kind of easy when you think that you're always right. But yeah, no, I definitely wasn't right in the earlier days. So again, I pissed a lot of people off. Just give me one moment here, guys. Okay, so good news, guys. It looks like Herman will be joining us in a couple of minutes, so you won't have to sit and listen to me make up shit out of my head. So let's just give him a moment, I think. I'm being grilled by my girlfriend. I'm really hoping that he manages to resolve his connection because, geez, this is an incredible subject, and I know we've been waiting for some time now. It's one of the most unfortunate things about the country in which we live. We've got some of the most useless ISPs available in the world. And it looks like he has arrived.
Hello.
Hey, sorry. Welcome. No shame, man. I know the struggles. I've actually been speaking absolute bullshit for the last 5 minutes trying to keep the conversation going. Yeah. I think I've been caught.
Fine.
I think my limitations have been shown here. I'm not a good conversationalist, it seems. But we are.
You know what? I sometimes battle with my internet connection, and I've
I'm
back again.
You. There you are. There you are. Well, look. I mean, hopefully, we can get a little bit of a conversation out here. I understand that. Well, first of all, thank you for making a plan. Thank you for making a plan to. I know you've been battling for the past while, and appreciate you doing pretty much everything you can to be here with us today. But I think you, of all people, understand how important this subject is. And what I will say is, we have had interest in this subject like you cannot believe. I have had people giving me questions anonymously. I have had people constantly asking me, right, when are we doing this? What's happening? I really want to listen to that. So, I mean, without further ado, Herman, I've titled this particular podcast "Defeating Drugs" because that's exactly what you've done. Am I right?
Yes, it is. It is. I've been sober now. The 7th of December, I'll be sober and clean from drugs and alcohol for 5 years.
You deserve a round of applause, sir. That is one hell of an achievement. And I mean, I can't personally relate because I mean, I've obviously had other struggles, but I've never walked that road. But from the people that I do know that have overcome it, I know that it is the biggest battle that one can ever have. It is one of the hardest things in life to sort of overcome. So 5 years, famously 5 years sober now, Herman. That's absolutely incredible. I think we should kick off this conversation by just sort of, as silly as it may sound, what exactly is drug abuse? Is it limited to narcotics, or does it expand into prescription medication?
It does. So you get different types of drug addiction. Okay, you get people call them junkies. I don't like the word because I think it's very degrading to call another human being a junkie. But those are people that will use drugs recreationally. They don't use it for a specific reason, and then they become addicted to it, and then eventually they become full-blown drug addicts. Then you get people that start using drugs for a specific reason. So it might be because they are suffering from a lot of pain, or they have personal issues, or like in my case, have mental illness, and they use these drugs to try and cope with the addiction, with the illness. So drug addiction is actually a mental illness. It is actually listed as a mental illness. And then when you have something like mental illness and you are a drug addict, it's called a comorbidity, which means that you have two mental illnesses and the one is done because of the other one. So you don't just do the drugs because you want to get high or you want to party or whatever.
Yeah.
You do it for a specific reason. It's almost like self-medication. We call it self-medication. And that is how I started using drugs. So people must just differentiate between those two. You get people that abuse drugs for their own personal because they like, how it makes them feel, and then you get people that abuse drugs because of an illness or because of some other medical or personal reason.
So it's so. I mean, am I right in saying that besides recreational drug users, which like you mentioned, do it for the party, do it for to fit in with their peers, to that sort of thing. Is it something that the body needs to carry on through a day? Is it does one feel like it's you wake up and you sort of you need your next fix to get to the next chapter of the day, or is it like does your body want it or does your mind want it?
It's actually both. So how it works is like this. You are going to start with something like, for example, smoking cannabis. Okay, a lot of people smoke cannabis. I have no problem with people smoking cannabis. But then at one stage, they realize that I'm not getting the fix that I want from it anymore. So they move to something else. They maybe go to a rave or they are introduced to ecstasy, which is MDMA. They take one and then they've got this wonderful feeling and they use it over a period of time. And then after a while, it doesn't work anymore. So now they have to use two and they have to use three and they have to use four.
Ah,
That is where it comes in then where you, like you said now, you have to keep on using it, not just to get high, but only to feel okay, to function at a certain level. So it becomes a problem because your physically, first of all, it's a psychological addiction, and then
yes,
it's a physical addiction. So after a while, you start withdrawing physically if you don't get your what we call your fix. Now,
yes,
different drugs have got different effects on you, and the withdrawing and the need to take it differs from drug to drug. Something like MDMA is not although it's addictive, the need to take more is not that intense. If you do something like meth, then you have to. If you don't do it, it almost feels as if though you become insane. So the harder the drug, the more the need is to take more and more and more and more.
if you if you were to list, I mean, obviously, I mean, drugs are drugs. Maybe different effects, different levels of high, different effects on the body, etc. But drugs are classified as drugs. If you were to give me your top three, ranging from the most dangerous being one, all the way to number
Yeah.
three being the, well, in your mind, you basically just give me your top three most lethal drugs, if you want to call it that, on the market at the
Okay.
moment.
Okay. I'm going to give you four. The reason I'm
Okay.
going to give you four, there's a reason for that.
Okay.
The three most dangerous drugs out there is meth. It absolutely destroys a life, and it's very difficult for a person that's a meth addict to come off something like meth. Then it's cocaine. Cocaine is absolutely
Oh,
it's a killer. It does a lot of harm to human beings. It does
wow.
a lot of people get so addicted to it that their noses start, disintegrating and the entire system backs up. Then one of the party drugs, in my personal opinion, MDMA, ecstasy. Although what you do with it at that time might not be that dangerous. The reason why I would put it in the top three, it opens you up to more serious drugs. That is why I would put it into, one of the top three. But then, and people are going to say, yeah, but you know what? It's just a over-the-counter drug. According to me, the most dangerous drug out there in South Africa at the moment is painkillers, because
Oh,
anybody can go to a chemist. You can get them over the counter. You ask for codeine. They're going to give you codeine. And what these people don't realize is something like codeine is so addictive.
yes.
When I was addicted to codeine. When I used to drink codeine, I would swallow six of them. I would wait half an hour. I would swallow another four. By the
Wow.
afternoon, I would take another six, and then I would take another four. So I swallowed 20 of those a day. Okay. In my life, I used about 14,000 of them.
Wow.
So if you can imagine the amount of damage that does to a human
Yeah.
mind and to your body and to my teeth. So although the immediate effect on painkillers and prescription drugs is not that bad, the long-term effect, and because it's so easy to get, I would put painkillers as number one.
And it's quite interesting because it's very interesting, and obviously you being a very credible source, it's I'm inclined to obviously to follow your advice and whatever you would have to say. But when I put my ear to the floor and I listen out there, there's the impression that that cocaine itself is not addictive. It's almost a choice is quite prevalent. It absolutely shocks me because I mean, if you look at every bad movie that's ever been made, what does it always involve? It involves a mirror and it
Cocaine,
involves cocaine. And
absolutely,
yet, the general
absolutely,
impression out there with people my age and younger is that it's not
yeah,
addictive and it is not damaging. I mean,
yeah.
so for you to name it number two is like a wow for me.
You see, the reason I would do that is because it might not be such a physical addiction; it's a psychological addiction. And a psychological addiction is often much harder to get off than a physical addiction. The thing with cocaine is, like, although it's very expensive, cocaine makes you feel like $1 million. You're on top of the world. You've got a lot of energy. You feel productive, and that is why a lot of these high profilers actually use cocaine because it makes them feel
Keep
good
and it
and keep
keeps them
going and a
going.
lot of energy. Absolutely. But I have friends that I've seen go from high functioning, high profile people to people that live on the street because of cocaine.
Wow.
So it's a very bad drug to use because of the physical damage that it does.
We got a question here from Chanel. She says she's heard that heroin is the most dangerous drug on the market.
Absolutely, it is. If you want to do it from a scientific point of view, then something like heroin is absolutely it's a horrific drug. The reason for that is it is so addictive that even if you only use it a few times, you become addicted to it. Something
Oh,
like yeah, something like painkillers and NDMA and so on. Most people are able to go off that and to become clean without going into rehab. With
oh,
something like heroin, it's almost impossible to become clean of heroin and mess without going into rehab. The reason for that is the withdrawal is so bad that you can actually die. You can actually die from the withdrawal symptoms.
so it's not a drug that you would be able to stop on your own and
On
wean
your,
yourself off of.
you can, but I've never. I don't believe that the human mind is not capable of assisting a person to get off heroin. But I've never met a person that could go off heroin on their own. They had to go to hospital.
And like you say, it's very dangerous because what you're describing to me tells me that the body almost builds a dependence on it. It's you know,
Absolutely.
I know of somebody who went through this battle, and having chatted to her, she gave me some insight, and it becomes about your next fix. You wake up in the morning, and
Absolutely.
it's the first thing on your mind, and then the second thing on your mind is to get money to buy the first thing on your mind. And
Absolutely.
it's a constant cycle. Now, when you mentioned about cocaine just a few seconds ago, do people end up on the streets, and maybe not cocaine in general, but drugs in general? Do they end up on the street because they literally sell everything they own, bust every credit card,
Yes.
extend every loan in order to get
Yes.
drugs?
Yes. You get two types of drug addicts. You get a functioning drug addict. I was a functioning drug addict, which means I actually worked to sustain my own addiction. So I would work during
Oh,
the day and at night I would pay for my own drugs. Then you get a non functioning addict. Those are the people I was on my way to that. So those are the people that get to a stage where they no longer have a job because they can't function at work anymore. Their families have discarded them because they lie and cheat and steal. They lose their homes because they don't pay their rent anymore, and then they end up on the street. Yes,
That's, I mean, that's a terrifying state of affairs that you can literally go from having everything in the world to having nothing within a very, very
absolutely.
short space of time. So, I mean, and you know what the funny thing is for me, Herman, I'm obviously, I mean, like I said, I've got my own struggles, but one of them, thank God, is not drugs. But it almost seems like they are so available, and I hate to say this, but my girlfriend and I took a trip to Mpumalanga recently, and we visited the historic town of Pilgrim's Rest. And Pilgrim's Rest was somewhere that I used to frequent as a child in school with our school tours and everything. And God, was it a beautiful place? It's a shell of what it was. And
Absolutely.
we're walking down the street, and you look at certain individuals, mostly foreigners. I'm not gonna get specific and ugly here, but leaning against walls, and just the way they sort of try to approach you, and the friendliness in their approach. I mean, you know exactly what it's about. I can hardly
Absolutely.
walk anywhere these days without somebody asking me, "Hey, do you need something?" And what
Yeah.
is something? Something could be anything, but I think everybody knows how it is. So the
It's drugs.
availability of drugs is scary. And, living in Edenville, I sit here, it makes me wonder right this
Yeah.
minute as I sit here, how many places are we able to get drugs down from Riebeck Avenue?
Absolutely.
It's alarming, and I think the scariest thing of all is the fact that it's entering our schools, the fact that
Yeah.
it's affecting our children. And
Yeah.
the problem with kids, guys, is they because they are not adults, they are minors. They don't have the street smarts, they don't have the awareness or the frame of mind to make good decisions. If we look back to the days that when we were in school, what did we do the most? We followed the leader. We found that
Yes.
one person in that one group who we wanted to be like because everybody liked him or her, and we wanted to do what they wanted to do. And peer pressure is a thing. And I
Absolutely.
think I think it's absolutely terrifying. Now, another question before we continue: do you think schools are doing enough to inform their students about the dangers of drugs?
I think there is a lot of education. When I was still in school, it was a very hush hush thing, and it's not something that you talk about and so on. But I think today there's a lot more opportunity for children and for kids to talk about it and to discuss it and to get educated on it. But I just want to mention something. It's much easier today to get drugs than it was in my young years to get drugs. I can,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to say how, but I can go online now and have my cocaine delivered at the door. It's
Wow.
in South Africa. Yes, you can actually have it delivered at the door. It's illegal. It's illegal, but it can actually be done. So it's so easy. It's so easy today for people to get drugs. You can go out in the street. You see them standing like you say. You mention to them. You show to your lips or whatever, and then they know you want drugs. Or you make like this, then they know you want prescription drugs or whatever. And in our school system, because discipline has become so difficult to enforce in schools nowadays, um, I think although they try and assist the kids, I think on the one hand, they often enable them to get drugs a lot easier because discipline has basically left our schools.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was in school, we used to go down to the principal's office for our good old sets of jacks for almost nothing. Now it's absolutely unheard of. Kids are walking
Yeah,
over teachers, beating up their peers. It's a sorry
yeah,
state of affairs, and I think by now you know how much I love the police, and it's quite alarming to see because in Edenvale, and honestly speaking, being a live broadcast, I honestly don't give a shit who sees this because I'm sick and tired of these cops here at the Edenvale police station. The there was a certain station commander in place a couple of years ago. And
Yeah,
this guy was always in the news. He was always in the news because he was arranging stings and busts and doing this and doing that. He was involved in the community, arranging all of these busts and arrests. There was almost not one week that the local newspaper didn't come out with some sort of drug bust that had taken place. And
yeah,
unfortunately, anybody that's in a government position that seems to do what they're supposed to do and do a bit too well ultimately
yeah,
gets transferred or removed. And that's exactly what happened. I couldn't even
yeah,
tell you who the station commander is now. And I know
yeah.
that drugs are prevalent in Edenvale at the moment, and nobody's doing anything about it. In fact,
Mhm.
I've heard a couple of stories just this week of people being pulled over and drugs being seized, and the people that were caught with the drugs themselves are told to go. Drugs are
Yeah,
seized. Now, what does that tell you? There's no
yeah,
docket to tie the drugs to, so where the drugs going? Straight back into
absolutely.
uh,
Into the
circulation.
system. Absolutely. It does. It does happen. You see, Adam, the problem with drugs is it's such a big multi-billion dollar industry worldwide. So you've got one of two options. You can either do a complete national ban on all drugs. You can make it impossible for people to bring it in. You can do searches. You can arrest people and send them to prison for 20 years and whatever. But to enforce that is almost impossible. It's almost impossible because there's so much crime right all over the world and right here in South Africa that the manpower needed to have a drug police is almost impossible. Then you've got the other option, like some countries have done. You can decriminalize drugs, okay, which means that it's legal to have them, it's legal to use them. What's good about that is it takes the criminal element out of the loop. So it's
Yes.
decriminalized. You don't get these shady people involved in it, and you don't get. Okay, you will still get shady people, but the whole criminal thing about it is no longer part of it. So it can then also be controlled a lot easier. But
Yeah.
my personal thing about drugs is that every human being has the right to decide if they want to use drugs or not. They have
Right.
the right to decide if they want to put something into their system that's going to cause harm.
Yes.
However, if something is poisonous, no government is going to allow that poison to go into the system. It is proven. I mean, there's so much evidence that drugs is poison to the system. So why is that then being allowed? Because people are making money out of it. People have got fingers in pies everywhere. And
Yes.
you must also remember a drug addict that wants his next fix will do anything, anything to get that fix. So it's very difficult then to almost control it.
Yes. Yeah. And it's. I mean, it's a sorry state of affairs. The decriminalization of drugs. Or no, let's look at the other one. Let's look at the total ban on drugs. I mean, let's take a look at what happened during the prohibition with cigarettes and alcohol. It was completely banned. It was completely criminalized. However, it was
Exactly.
still available. The only thing that happened
Exactly.
was the price was driven up. So that's exactly
Exactly.
what would happen. It would just become that
Absolutely.
much more illegal. It would probably just
Absolutely.
have it would have higher consequences if nothing else, but it would
The
also have
black
a higher price.
Absolutely. The black market will explode.
So I don't think there's necessarily the ideal world where it's completely eradicated. It's very
Mhm.
unfortunate. With our kids, the only thing we can do, and with my 6 year old, I look at him every day, and I think the only thing I can do for him in conjunction with his mom is raise him properly, raise him
Absolutely.
to understand the dangers out there, be real with him, and hope that he makes good choices, and be there to catch him
Absolutely.
when he doesn't. So
Absolutely.
that's the only thing that one can do as a parent. But now, how Herman, if you don't want to answer my next question, I fully understand. But it's completely up to you. But just out of interest, what drugs did you battle with exactly?
Okay. So my addiction is a very long period and it was intermittent. and I changed
Ah,
from drugs. I changed from different drugs to different drugs. So
ah,
when I was 16, I was diagnosed with mental illness for the first time. I had my first suicide attempt. I didn't use any drugs. I didn't drink. I didn't. I had no interest in it. Then, as I became older, 19, 20, I still didn't use drugs. I still didn't drink. What did happen to me was, if I did drink, I would become very sick. Now that is
ah,
something that is called toxic psychosis. So alcohol actually induces psychosis in me. I become psychotic if I drink alcohol. So I didn't drink, I didn't use drugs. Then a friend, and I want to put that in a friend,
okay,
introduced me to MDMA, which is ecstasy. I didn't know the drug. I didn't know about using drugs or anything, and I used it, and I felt better for the first time in many, many, many years. I actually
wow,
felt, I actually felt good. I wasn't depressed. So obviously, I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to try it again because
yes,
it's working. It's working much better than my medication. It's working much better than my therapy. So I started using MDMA. That was my very first drug that I used. I started using one, like maybe once a week. At the height of my MDMA addiction, I would swallow up to 10, 11 a night. That I didn't die
wow,
then was just, it was an absolute miracle. Then I stopped. I stopped using MDMA. Then for a few years, I was clean. Then I started using cocaine and ketamine.
oh,
Now, ketamine is a tranquilizer that they use on animals. It's like a horse. The vets use it on to tranquilize
oh,
horses. So I started using that, and I used that for about a period of a year and a half to 2 years. Then I stopped with that also. Then I started drinking. So I would go to work. I would go to work during the day. I would get a bottle of alcohol on my way home. I would down a liter of wine when I got home. I would wait about half an hour. I would down another liter of wine and I would pass out. So I first stopped using hard drugs on my own. Then I was an alcoholic for about 2 years. And then I went cold turkey on the 7th of December 2015 on all of them. So
wow,
it wasn't a constant thing throughout my life. It was at times I did use drugs, at times I didn't use drugs. Oh, during this time, I started using painkillers. So
oh,
like I said, I would swallow up to 40, sometimes 60 of them a day. Now combine that with alcohol and combine that with all the other drugs that I used. You can imagine the amount of damage that it does to you. Everybody knows about my teeth. My teeth are busy disintegrating into in my mouth. I'm losing a lot of weight. Um, I have issues with my liver. I have issues with my kidneys.
wow,
So yeah. So the thing about my addiction was I was fortunate enough to go cold turkey and to just stop within 24 hours. And since then, up to today, I've not touched it. I've used the odd painkiller when I had really bad backache. But that's it. Not everybody is fortunate enough to do that. It's not easy. It's not easy. Some days I stand there and I think I can just use it today. I can just use it this once. But I
yeah,
know that the risk that I will fall back into addiction is just it's too big. It's too big.
yes. Well, now that interests me. That's actually quite remarkable because I think you've managed to sort of achieve there what very few people have. I mean, you kicked quite a habit, and to go cold turkey is very, very brave. Was it risky for your health?
It is risky, not physically, because I wasn't addicted to something like heroin, thank God,
Yeah,
or meth or so on. So
right.
although the withdrawal was actually quite bad. I actually filmed myself. It took me 10 days to withdraw from codeine. I've never
Wow.
posted. I've never posted the video. I will one day post it, where you can see how sick I am. I'm throwing up and I'm nauseous and I don't feel good and so on. But
Can you?
the
Yeah.
yes. No,
Sorry.
go
No.
ahead.
Please continue. Okay. Can you
Um,
describe? Okay. Let's do
no,
this. You go
go,
for it, Herman.
go.
Okay.
The
Sorry.
physical side of it
Yes.
wasn't, although it was bad, wasn't so bad for me as it would be for a heroin addict. But the psychological side of it was, it's still difficult today. It's 5 years later, it's still difficult.
So yeah, I mean, after 5 years, does it still cross your mind? Do you have those little moments where you say, I wish?
E- every single day,
Is that so?
every single
S-
day.
So it's literally a lifelong struggle from that day. Can you tell me
Ab-
what was going through your mind while you were withdrawing? What were you thinking? Were you all there? Were you not all there? How did you do it? I mean, especially with you going cold turkey on your terms and what I assume is your residence. How what went through your mind and how what did it feel like? I hate for you to relive it, but just so people understand out there, what does the body go through? What does the mind go through when there's something like that happens?
I'm actually, no, I'm very glad you're asking that because I want to make it real to people. It's not a picnic. It's not a, it's not a walk in the park. So I stopped the first day after. It's not that bad. You feel a little bit oozy and a little bit wheezy, and you feel a little bit tired and so on. But it's not that bad. The second
Okay.
day, you start feeling, if you haven't had a smoke for a while, you start getting that craving and you start becoming
Right.
irritated and so on. So the second day was also difficult, but it wasn't that bad. The third day was absolute hell. I started throwing up. I had the most insane headache. I didn't know that a person could get such bad headaches. I actually had to take paracetamol just to stop the headaches from being so bad because I couldn't even see. Then I started to get a runny tummy. I started getting night sweats. My muscles would start aching, and then something very very bad happened. It is called. We all get it. It's night terrors. You get nightmares. Okay. But these nightmares are so bad that it's almost, and I don't want to bring a religion into it because it's got nothing to do with religion, but it's almost
Yeah.
demonic. It's almost demonic. Your mind is
Wow.
so disturbed from the withdrawing that the images and stuff that you see in your head is so upsetting. I would wake up from a night terror, and the images that I had in the dream would still
Mhm.
linger in front of my face.
Oh my
So
God.
that is, yeah. So that is because your mind is now trying to adjust and
Wow.
trying to. Sorry, Mitch is at the door. Let me just get Mitch. She wants to say
No
hi.
worries. Introduce him. About to meet the famous Mitch, guys. Famous little pitch. Hey, Mitch. Hey, buddy. And guys, just to put it into perspective, that's a very, 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 very important little person to Herman.
Absolutely, absolutely. So um, the withdrawal for me was bad, but it wasn't that bad. It's not as if though I needed to be hospitalized, or it's like you've got a cold times 10. It's bad. But now, when you start withdrawing from something like heroin, you become very, very, very ill. You actually need to be
Yeah.
under doctor supervision. You need to be in a hospital. Some people become so ill that they break the going sober and they start using drugs again because the withdrawing
Oh,
is so bad that they can't cope with it. They can't cope with it.
I've only heard about the effects of heroin, but by the sounds of it, it sounds like a living hell. Trying
It
to
is
kick
living
that.
hell.
Wow, it's very it feels very real to me to hear stuff like this. We've got another comment here, Herman. From Jordan Mendoza. He says Jordan Peterson was on benzos, and he said that those are evil little pills. No doctors in the USA knew how to deal with his case. I don't know if does that resonate with you?
Yeah, a lot of people do get addicted to benzos. You see, the problem with medication is it's given to you by a doctor. Okay, we all trust doctors; they know what they're doing, and we get it from a pharmacy. But a lot of the time, the doctors don't explain to you that the medication you're taking is actually addictive. You can actually become addicted to the medication that you're taking. For example, I have bipolar disorder, as you all know. So they give you an antidepressant. Because I have bipolar disorder, the antidepressant can put me into mania, which is actually a high. So my medication can actually make me high. So what am I going to do? I'm going to drink more. So you must be very careful when you get prescription medication to make sure that you understand the side effects, that you discuss with your doctor if you've got an addictive personality, if you're prone to addiction, they must put you on something that doesn't have a risk of addiction.
Is an addictive personality a real thing?
Yes,
Some people tend to think that it's a lot of this sort of stuff is a choice, and that an addictive personality doesn't exist. What's your perspective on that?
absolutely. Look, it's always a choice. Using drugs is always a choice. Nobody forces you to take drugs. There's one exception in human trafficking when they traffic humans. They steal a woman and they take her to some god forbidden country. They actually inject
Yeah.
them with drugs and they make them addicted to the drug in order to keep them in whatever brothel or whatever. But that is something completely different. Me as an ex-addict and addicts all over the world, it is always a choice. Nobody forces you to start using drugs. It's always a choice.
It's geez, it's an absolutely scary thing. Now, what made you arrive at the decision to try and kick this habit? Because you said you had been sort of on and off for many years, etc. What was the turning point for you, Herman?
My dog. So I had a little dachshund with the name of Sien. When you have to forgive me, I always cry when I talk about him. So I had Sien for a very long time, for about 14 years. Then the last 3 years of Sien's life, he became very ill and he had bad arthritis. And um, Sien attached, I call it imprinting. Sien imprinted on my soul. And for 3 years, I didn't leave my house. I barely went out. I turned down dates. I almost never left my room to be with this being. Um, and I formed such a connection with him that he kept me alive. He kept me going. That is the time I started posting on social media a lot. I started getting known. My hospital case started getting attention. People started mentioning me in the press and so on. So this little dachshund actually gave me life. So I looked at him the one day and I realized if I had to die now from a drug overdose, what's going to happen to this dog that is now imprinted on my soul? What is going to happen to this living being? And because he rescued my life, I decided, you know what, I need to do something for him and go clean and go sober and keep on living to celebrate um, his memory and what he did for me. So animals, in specific Sian, but animals in general was the driving force. And I realized if I don't stop, I would die.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, that's probably a big realization, but it's a tough thing to come to terms to when you've been doing something for so long, and the addiction essentially owns you. So I can't
Yeah.
imagine how difficult that must be. What type of toll did the drug abuse and alcohol abuse, etc. What toll did it take on your body? I know you've mentioned it briefly, but where were you and where are you now, sort of health wise?
Okay, so at the height of my addiction, I wasn't so bad physically. I actually, I wasn't so thin and so on. But what often happens is that it's a delayed effect. So you would be a drug addict now, and the effects it does on your body only start showing many years later. And that is unfortunately what is starting to happen with me now. I've been clean and sober for 5 years now, and now my teeth are starting to disintegrate. I'm battling to pick up weight, and I've sometimes have issues with my skin and so on. So the effect it had on me wasn't so bad physically as it had as on some people, and that is because I didn't use stuff like heroin and so on. But it does have an effect, and I will have scars from it for the rest of my life. The damage it did to me was more psychological than physical. But just to give you a few examples of what it did to me while I still use it, you can't urinate
Mhm.
when you're a heavy addict. You really battle to
Really?
urinate. Yeah, you really battle to. You get a
Is
lot
that
of
because of the
night sweats.
kidneys?
Yeah, because of your kidneys.
Wow.
Your kidneys are working overtime to try
Yeah.
and get rid of all these toxins.
Wow.
You constantly have headaches because you constantly are, almost in withdrawal until your next fix. It's very bad for your teeth. It completely messes up a person's teeth. It makes your skin looks older, and then it can affect your sleeping patterns. I was fortunate that it didn't really affect my sleeping patterns, but I did get a lot of night terrors. And then the biggest effect it had on me was my body weight. I really battled to pick up weight, and then of course the psychological damage that it did.
It's actually sorry. It's a bit it's scary to hear this type of thing that this type of stuff is so readily available. And I mean, this is what it does. What's kind of effect can besides the drug user themselves, what type of effect does it have on the people around them? What do they see? What do they have to deal with
Okay,
commonly?
it's absolutely a very important question because drug addiction, is not only affecting the person that's the addict. It affects everybody around them because that person lies, they cheat, they steal to get the money for the next fix, and also the people around you see how you are going backward. They see how you're losing weight. They see how your skin is becoming bad. They see how your teeth are starting to disintegrate. So for them, it's actually sometimes even worse because they're witnessing a slow suicide. I call drug addiction a slow suicide. So they're actually looking at this person they love that's busy killing himself, and there's nothing they can do. There's nothing that they can do. The only person that can stop using drugs is the addict. Nobody can stop using drugs for you. You have to do it
Mm.
yourself. So it must be very bad for people around you to see, wow, this person that I love is basically killing me himself. It's not easy for them. It's not.
And I mean, is it common for an addict to maybe to I don't know be violent, unpredictable, spiraling moods, aggressive?
Yes,
Is that another common thing that they would have to maybe perhaps deal with? Almost
absolutely.
unpredictability.
Absolutely. For some addicts, I was my drugs that I used made me very calm, and I would
Uh,
lie on my back, and I would listen to very soft and gentle music, and so on. But not always. there were times, and I tell this people know it. I'm not shy to say it. I'm not shy to share it because I want people to understand what drugs do to you. So I'm a very gentle person. I don't like hurting anyone. I don't like violence. I'm completely objected to violence. When I was on the height of my addiction, the one night I drank a lot of alcohol and I got toxic psychosis. So it was so bad that I started going like this, okay? Then I stopped breathing. So my friend had to get an ambulance out to come
Wow.
and take me to hospital because I stopped breathing. So eventually, in the ambulance, I became so psychotic that the paramedic had to restrain me, had to push me down. I started breathing again. They had to push me down, and then they admitted me to hospital. So now the doctors in the hospital are not very sympathetic to you because you're drunk. I mean, you're intoxicated,
Mm.
and you are a problem to them. So they're not very kind to you, which is unfortunately, not always very nice because you're there as a person with a problem. So what happened
Yes.
was I was sitting on the bed like this, and there was another bed next to me, and this nurse, unaware of the fact that I'm actually psychotic, told me in a not very kind tone to get off the bed and climb on the other bed. And just the tone in her voice triggered something in my head, and I actually attacked her. I jumped over the bed and jumped on top of her. Now, if
Wow.
people that know me know that as a sober human being, I would never do something like that. I'm so anti-violence. I'm so anti-aggression, and so on. So that just shows you the ability that drugs have to alter a person's personality completely. The one day we lived in a flat, me and a friend, on the fifth floor. And my friend found me on the outside of the building, completely naked, climbing down the outside of the building. So it just shows you how utterly destructive it is to a person's mind.
That's unbelievably scary. I mean, anything could have happened
It
there.
is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, in terms of an addict and say the workplace, I mean, is it common? We've discussed how the mind altering, the fact that it's the only thing that one can think about, the fact that they need to get money to support this habit. How does that affect the work life? Because by what you're telling me, it almost sounds impossible to function as normal.
Yeah. So a lot of people in the beginning of their drug life, they become very high functioning. They're productive and they're on top of it and they can go with little sleep and they become, managers and they perform and so on. But it's a lie. It's your personality working above what you are actually capable to do. So as you start using more and more, it's starting to affect your ability to concentrate at work. You start lying because you quickly need to go to the toilet every 5 minutes to get a fix, or you have to take several days off work because you're sick, your body is not coping, and then eventually it does take over your work life as well. I'm very fortunate that it never affected my work. I always excelled in my jobs, and I um, did that so that I can have enough money at the end of the month to pay for my addiction.
And I mean, in terms of actual dealers out there, from what I've seen and the experience that I've had in the past 10, 11 years of my working life, whatever the case may be, um, it's almost like these they form relationships with their dealers, but I mean it's not a relationship, is it? It's disguised as a friendship. It's disguised as that go-to guy, but in reality, I mean it's murder, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's the weirdest thing to think of. Do people commonly become friends with their dealers? Is it's
They
it's a
do.
matter of a WhatsApp?
No, they do. I my one dealer, I would send okay, those days where I text, I would send a text, listen, I want this and this and this, and we would arrange it and so on. But you must remember, a lot of the dealers are addicts themselves, so
Oh,
they have to do it. They have to deal in drugs so that they can get money to get more drugs. But I want to tell everybody out there, there's no such thing as a drug dealer that cares about your life. They don't. They don't care about your life. They will do anything to get their money. And once you fall into that darkness of that entire subculture, you're going to start dealing with people that are disturbed, that are dangerous. If I think back now of the people I met and the places I went to get my drugs, it's a miracle that I never got arrested or beaten up or So yeah,
it's actually very scary because I mean that whole underworld, it's almost like a mafia type concept, isn't it? It's
it is.
you get drugs if you don't pay for them or if you owe money. I think one of the worst things I've ever heard out on the streets is if you owing, for example, a Nigerian drug lord or drug dealer money. It's probably one of the most dangerous positions to be in, isn't it?
Absolutely, they will kill you. They will kill you if you do not pay them. They will kill your family. They will come and break your kneecaps. They will. You must remember, it's not a product that they sell in a business. It is something that is completely illegal, that is obtained illegally, that is provided to you illegally, and yeah, no, it's not a pleasant bunch of people to be around. It's not.
That's incredibly unhealthy, isn't it? And I mean, quite often you're driving through the streets and you'll see the SAPS have pulled somebody over spontaneously and go through the car. It's probably suspected drugs or stuff
Yeah,
like that. In fact, I saw it today. They pulled a random gentleman over. He was in what to them must have looked like a suspicious vehicle, tinted windows, etc. Perhaps he was trawling the area, whatever the case may be. But it's almost like they stand out like sore thumbs, don't they?
yeah,
So easy to get a hold of. But I've heard some pretty horrible stories about the consequences of not paying your bill, the consequences of dealing in that world, and it's absolutely
absolutely.
frightening. Like you said, that I think I think it doesn't even come down to your own safety. It's the fact that they will go as far as your family.
Absolutely. No, they will. They will. They will. They will. Look, Adam, I never became part of that CD world because I used to get my stuff through somebody else, and my main addiction was Cody, which is it's a legal thing. You can get it over the counter and so on. But I started moving into that danger zone of CD people and the really hard drugs. But thank God I stopped before I really got engulfed in that, because once you're engulfed in that, it's almost impossible to get out of it. It is possible, but it's very difficult.
No, sure. It's not a place anybody should really aim to be. Hey, I mean, rather just
No,
avoid the whole problem altogether. It's
absolutely,
you basically heading towards death anyway you slice it. Um,
absolutely.
so another question that just dawned upon me: over the last 5 years, do you find yourself feeling better and better and better? Somebody I know popped out of rehab and they said, they felt almost reborn after their
Yeah,
detox, after their therapy, etc. Do you feel better?
I do. I do. You must remember the whole process of becoming clean and starting a new life and so on. It's almost a spirit, not almost, it is a spiritual experience. So you become a lot more centered in yourself and a lot calmer and so on. Unfortunately, and that's something we'll get into at another stage. I'm not just a normal drug addict that went from no longer using drugs. I still have mental illness. So the reason for my drug use was my mental illness. And the thing that caused it, I still have. So although I'm getting better physically and so on, that reason why I use the drugs is still there and it will be there for the rest of my life. Where other people might use drugs just to feel good or to get a high, for them it's really a completely different experience and almost a reborn experience. I do face a lot of health challenges, but I do. To answer your question, yes, I do feel some weekends after the weekend I will wake up on a Monday morning and I'll think to myself, I'm not drunk, I don't have a hangover, I don't feel that coming down from the drugs, and it's an absolutely incredible feeling to feel that way. It's so empowering to feel free from it.
From that. So it's and it really is incredible though the fact that you've managed to stay clean for this amount of time. Something else that I want to bring up with you, Herman, before we sort of come to the end of our segment, is
Sure.
do you believe that one addiction is replaced by another? So,
Yes.
for example, you are on drugs, and then sort of suddenly you become engrossed in your work, or like yourself, I've noticed you involved in a lot of different things. You have a lot of projects going on. There's a lot of moving parts. Is that a much needed distraction? Obviously, being more
Uh,
constructive.
um, yes and no. For some people, the one addiction just is just replaced with the other one. I started with MDMA, and then I moved over to ketamine, and then cocaine, and then I started on the alcohol, and then the painkillers, and then I stopped completely. And I also quit smoking, but I started smoking again due to pain management. But to answer that, some people need to have some form of addiction, something that keeps them busy, that keeps their minds occupied the whole time. There's nothing wrong in becoming obsessed with a specific object that replaces addiction. Okay. But as soon as your interest in that thing becomes unhealthy, it completely controls your life, it completely controls your mind, then you've got a new addiction. Then that thing becomes your addiction. Then you just replace the one thing with the other thing. As long as you have balance, balance is what it's all about. If you can leave anything for a few minutes alone, for a few hours alone, and completely be okay and not think about it and not need it to function, then you're not addicted to that thing. There's no problem in doing something constantly, like I'm constantly busy on social media and writing and busy with animals. But that's not an addiction, that's a passion. People mustn't
Yes.
confuse addiction with passion. There's nothing wrong in having a passion in something, but the moment it controls your entire existence, then it becomes an addiction.
Thank you, Herman. That's absolutely incredible. Guys, Herman's socials are below. Please go give him a like, give him a follow. He's full of interesting
Adam, I just want to
posts.
mention
Yes.
something, please. There's a movie readily available. You can stream it. You can go to Google, type it in. It's called Requiem for a Dream. Requiem for a Dream. So, Requiem for a Dream is this movie that shows the absolute beauty of addiction. Okay, it shows how wonderful it is and how beautiful it is, and people have this, loving a relationship, and they have this beautiful life, and they function, and then halfway through the movie, it changes over from the beautiful into the ugly. Then it shows you what it eventually does to you. It's a very difficult movie to watch because what you see in the beginning is so beautiful, and it almost makes you want to use drugs. And
Yes.
then when you come to the end of the movie, you realize I never ever want to use drugs. So if you're an addict, or if you have somebody that is an addict, please go to Google, go and type in Requiem for a Dream. It's, according to me, the best movie about drug addiction ever made. And if that doesn't give you a wake up call, then nothing will give you a wake up call.
Guys, I've posted a link in the comment section. Go have a look at it. Go check it out. It sounds incredible. I'm definitely going to watch that. I'm going to come back to you on that one, Herman. But once again, guys, Herman's socials are below. Please, please, please go give him a follow. Very
Thank
interesting,
you.
very informative, very profound. Give him a follow. And Herman, my brother, once again, thank you so much for being on my
Thank
show.
you.
I'm
Thank you.
almost certain it's not going to be the last time. I'm
Thank
almost
you,
certain
Adam.
it's not going to be the last time. And guys, this show was dedicated to somebody very, very special. They know who they are. I'm not going to give names. Mr. Le Roux, always an absolute pleasure. Thanks again. I'm so grateful to you, and I'm pretty sure you and I are going to work on some projects in the near future, and we will keep everybody informed. Guys, go give my page a like. Go give my page a follow. Your support is much appreciated. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel to help us grow, help us keep this train going, guys. Let's save a life. Mr. Le Roux, take care, sir. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody that joined us. This has been...
Bye-bye.